She was abandoned from the very beginning of her life. She had no family, no home, not even a real name of her own. But one day, everything changed. Welcome to Weathered Stories. Today, I'll tell you the story of a girl named Junie, half Apache, half white. Neither world ever accepted her. Can someone who spent her whole life caught between two worlds build one of her own? And will those who always saw her as an outsider let her try? If you're ready to see how Junie finally dared to live life on her own terms, hit like and let's begin. The rain came down cold and hard, like it was trying to wash the land clean. The dirt turned heavy and thick. The horses scattered. The birds were gone. And one girl lay there in the mud, motionless. Her eyes were open. She was still breathing. Her name was Junie, Apache by blood. But nobody ever gave her a real name. At the mission school where she was raised, they told her she didn't belong, not here, not there. Some called her a traitor, others a stranger. So she ran, far, until she just fell. She didn't wake from the rain. She woke to footsteps. Someone was coming closer. Junie didn't lift her head. She was scared. "You alive?" a man's voice asked. Rough, but calm. She said nothing. The man knelt down beside her, looked her over. "Apache," he muttered. "Damn fool, you'll freeze out here." He picked her up, didn't ask, just carried her, toward warmth, toward fire, toward a place where she didn't ask for help. But it came anyway. Junie woke to the smell of smoke and old leather. She was lying on a narrow cot in a small room with low ceilings and wooden walls. Somewhere nearby, a fire crackled in a stove. The rain was still falling, but softer now. It tapped on the tin roof like tired fingers. Her body ached. Her lips were dry. Her dress, muddy and soaked, had been carefully draped over the back of a chair. A rough wool blanket covered her. Warm, not hers. Clearly not meant for her. She tried to sit up. That's when the door creaked open. "You're awake," said the same voice. The man walked in. He looked about 40, stubble on his jaw, hands rough with work, eyes the color of dry earth. He held a tin mug in his hand. "Here," he said, setting it on a wooden crate beside the bed. "Coffee. Not strong, but it's hot." Junie lowered her eyes. He noticed. "I'm not gonna hurt you," he said evenly. "If I meant to, I'd have left you out there." She didn't reply, but there was no fear in her eyes. No trust either. Just waiting. He nodded. "Suit yourself. Food's on the way," he added, and walked out. She waited a while before reaching for the cup. Her hands trembled. The coffee was bitter, a little burnt, but it was real. It was warm. She held the mug with both hands like she was afraid to let it go. The metal stung her fingers, but that heat. That was the first real warmth she'd felt in a long, long time. Junie took a small sip. Harsh, smoky, but alive. No fancy manners. Just coffee. Just life. She closed her eyes, letting herself believe, for a moment, that this wasn't a dream. The fire cracked. The rain became a soft hum behind it. No voices. No prayers. No Latin. Just the smell of smoke and the taste of hot coffee. She was alive. Not in a shelter. Not on a road. But in a room where no one pushed her away. Where no one looked down on her. Not yet. Junie took another sip. The warmth spread slowly through her chest, grounding her. She didn't know what came next. But right now, she could breathe. And that was enough. The next time she saw him, it was through the window. He was out by the corral, tall, sleeves rolled up, moving slow and steady. A restless horse paced in front of him, tense, ready to bolt. He didn't shout, didn't yank the lead, just held the rope and spoke to her without words, through stillness, timing, the rhythm of his breath. Junie watched for nearly an hour. He never looked back to see if anyone was watching. He just worked, like he understood something most people didn't. That strength isn't forced. It's guided. He wasn't trying to break the horse. He was talking to her. Patient, calm, certain. And in that, there was something Junie had never seen before. That evening, she found the courage to speak. Almost. He came in, checked the fire, added wood. Didn't look her way. Didn't wait for words. Just went about his business. "Why?" she asked quietly. He paused, turned his head. "Why what? Why didn't you turn me in?" She didn't lift her eyes. He scratched his chin. You think they'd have done better? Better than this? He didn't answer right away. Just looked at her long and steady. Truth is, he said finally, I don't trust folks who talk too loud about justice. Usually means they're after revenge. She stayed quiet. Not because she didn't understand, but because she understood all too well. I had a brother, he added. He was killed. By people from your side. I hated all of you. For a long time. Then I figured out, hate don't fix a damn thing. It just wears you down. She had nothing to say. But for the first time in a long while, she wasn't afraid. What she felt was something else. Quiet. Complicated. Uncertainty. And respect. That night, she couldn't sleep. Not from fear. Just, everything felt different. The wood walls creaked in ways the mission school never did. No bells. No prayers. No orders barked in Latin. Just rain on the roof. And the soft crackle of coals in the stove. The silence was full. Not empty. No threat behind it. No punishment waiting inside it. It was a silence you could simply be in. She lay under a scratchy wool blanket, listening to the house breathe, and realized she wasn't scared. That feeling was strange. Almost new. Each day, Junie felt a little stronger. Her body steadier. Her steps more sure. She didn't ask permission. She just started helping. Swept the floors. Took out the ash. Brought in firewood. He never told her to stop. But he never said thank you either. Tools stayed where she could reach them. The door stayed unlocked. He didn't praise her. Didn't make small talk. But there were always 2 plates at the table. No words about it. Just set out. Sometimes she spoke. Sometimes she didn't. He never pushed. He fixed tack and hummed under his breath. Always paused before he spoke. And when he looked at her, there was no pity in his eyes. Just attention. Maybe even understanding. She didn't listen to his words so much as the silence between them. And that silence, it didn't scare her anymore. One morning, he called out to her. In his hand was a small bundle of folded fabric. This belonged to my wife, he said plainly. She passed a long time ago. If you want to wear it, go ahead. If not, that's fine too. He didn't wait for an answer. Just held it out. Junie took it without a word. Inside were a worn but clean blouse and a long skirt. She changed into them in silence. The fabric was soft, unfamiliar. It felt strange on her skin. Warm, but carrying someone else's memory. She didn't know what to feel, but she put it on anyway. Not because she wanted to be someone else, but because, for the first time, someone had offered her something. Not out of pity, but simply out of decency. Later that day, she stepped out onto the porch. The sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the dry land. Behind the house, just past the old shed, she noticed a tree. Beneath it, a single headstone. She walked closer. The name carved into the stone read, Gracie Sloan. No flowers. No fence. Just 3 quiet words beneath the name. No ornament. Nothing extra. Junie stood there for a long time, her fingers clutching the edge of the skirt. She didn't pray. Didn't whisper apologies. She just spoke, soft and low, in the language she remembered from her childhood. Not a prayer. A promise. That she wouldn't run anymore. And that the name she carried, one day, would truly be her own. In the evenings, they ate in silence. Simple meals, beans, bread, stewed meat. He did the cooking. She cleared the table. Sometimes she talked. Sometimes she just listened. His silence didn't feel heavy. It felt steady, like he was also learning what it meant to live beside someone else. One night, over dinner, she asked, You knew who I was, didn't you? He looked at her, calm and steady. I didn't know who you were, he said, but I see who you could be. She didn't reply. His words weren't comfort. They weren't judgment. They were just a fact. But in them, there was more than any kindness she'd ever known. Something shifted that evening. They weren't just a guest and a host anymore. They became something else. No name for it yet, but it was real. The next morning, she sat at the table, watching him work on a saddle. She was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, You know what folks say about me? He didn't look up. Depends who's talking. I don't talk to them. You probably should. If they come, she paused, it won't be over cattle. He set down the tool and looked at her, steady. You want to tell me? She nodded. My mother was white. She died when I was born. My father was from the tribe. They gave me to the mission. Said I could be saved. I thought that meant becoming better. Turned out it meant becoming someone else. She lowered her gaze. I didn't run away. They sent me off. Told me who to be. I tried, but it never fit. He listened. Said nothing. Did you believe them? He asked calmly. I wanted to. He nodded. I know what it's like, being in between. Not fitting anywhere. She looked up at him. You're really not afraid of me? No, he said. I'm just listening. She felt it before anything else. Something had shifted in him. He didn't say much, but Junie noticed he sharpened his knife longer than usual. Watched the horizon more than he needed to. The quiet in the house was still there, but now it felt tight. Like the stillness right before a storm. Who is it? She asked one evening as he stood by the window, not moving. Don't know yet, he said. But you will. He didn't explain. But the next morning, he cleaned a rifle that hadn't been touched in months. Junie went back to the garden. She weeded slowly, fingers in the dust, sun above. That's when she found it. Buried in the dirt, caught among weeds. A broken pendant. Hers. The one from childhood. She closed her hand around it, then let it go, as if it were just a rock. Not a piece of her memory. That night, she had a dream. Fire. The mission burning. Voices screaming. A girl falling. And a voice, clear as day. You were never meant to survive. She woke in a cold sweat. The fire in the stove had gone low. He wasn't there, but his coat was laid across her boots. And in that moment, she knew he felt it too. The storm was close. But for now, there was still silence. And in that silence, she had a choice to make. The next day, Clint was getting ready to head into town for supplies and mail. Said he'd go alone, like always. But Junie didn't hesitate. I'm coming with you, she said. He stopped, looked at her carefully. You sure? She nodded. Not to prove anything. Just because she was done hiding. Ben Hill was tiny. One main street. A few old buildings. Faded church paint, a dusty general store, and a blacksmith shop with smoke curling from the roof. As soon as they rode in, people noticed her. No shouting. No one stepped forward. But the looks were there. Long calculating. Clint pulled the wagon to a stop, walked around the horse, and held out a hand. Junie stepped down. I steady. She felt every glance. Someone froze mid-step with a bucket. Someone else nudged their kid behind them. But she didn't slow down, and neither did Clint. Side by side. Quiet. Steady. Inside the store, it was cool and dim. Behind the counter, Mr. Dorsey was sorting nails. He looked up and froze. Riv, he said. You bring the order? Clint laid the slip on the counter without a word. Yeah. Dorsey glanced at the girl next to him. Words caught in his throat. And she. Junie stepped forward. I don't belong to anyone, she said. But I help on the ranch. Her voice was calm. Not loud, but clear. Dorsey nodded, then walked off toward the back. They were alone in the store. Junie ran her finger along the edge of the counter. Someone had carved initials into the wood. Young Love. A kind she'd never known. Just then, a little girl walked up. Barefoot, freckled, with bright eyes. She held out a yellow flower. This is for you, she said. Junie took it, slow and careful, like it meant something more than it seemed. Thank you, she whispered. The girl smiled and ran off. When Junie turned around, Clint was watching her. Calm. Warm. Guess someone still remembers how to be decent, he said. Junie smiled, just a little. It wasn't much, but it was real. And for the first time in a long time, the town didn't feel scary. That evening, the rain came. Not harsh, not heavy, just steady, calm. It ran down the roof in quiet streams, soaked the dirt, and left soft patches across the porch. Junie stood barefoot in the doorway, wearing the old green dress that once belonged to Clint's wife. The fabric clung to her legs, the wind tugged at her hair. But she didn't move. She just watched the rain fall. Rain used to mean fear. Running. Mud under her nails. Cold in her bones. Now, it was just rain. She stepped out onto the porch. Slowly. Like she didn't need to prove a thing anymore. Raindrops slid down her face, her neck. The dress soaked through. But she didn't care. She didn't shake. She didn't flinch. She stood there. Clint stepped up beside her, quiet. Didn't say a word at first. You'll catch cold, he murmured. I don't think death waits on the weather, she replied. He said nothing, just took off his coat and draped it over her shoulders. I'm not trying to prove anything, she said. I know. They stood side by side. Close. Not touching. Just there. And the rain didn't scare her anymore. Later that evening, they sat by the stove. Junie was wrapped in a blanket, drying her feet by the fire. Clint placed 2 mugs on the table. He slid one toward her. You always keep a second mug ready? She asked. Only since you've been here, he said. They ate still. Quietly. Then she spoke. People always told me who I was supposed to be. My mother wanted me quiet and obedient. My father's people wanted me strong or gone. I tried to fit in, but no one ever believed me. They always looked at me like I was hiding something. He listened without interrupting. I didn't run, she said. I just realized no one wanted me. He looked at her. That's not you talking. That's me. She blinked, surprised. You don't even know me. I'm learning, he said calmly. And if you don't like what you find, then it's just one more truth I'll live with. She looked at him differently now. Like something shifted. The air felt warmer. Quieter. That doesn't sound very romantic, she said. I'm not trying to be romantic. So what are you trying to be? He didn't hesitate. Someone who stays. They fell silent again. But it wasn't the same silence. It was warm. Something had sparked between them. No words. No promises. But it was real. That night, she didn't sleep. She listened to the embers glow in the stove. Her thoughts were calm, but heavy. Not fear. Not worry. Just a kind of reckoning. She turned onto her side, pulled the blanket close, and whispered into the dark. I don't want to be a shadow anymore. She didn't know if he was awake. She wasn't looking for a reply. But in the morning, his coat was folded neatly at the foot of her bed. Next to it, a piece of fresh bread and a mug of warm tea. Clint stood on the porch, watching her. Quiet. Still. Like he was waiting. She met his eyes. I'm staying, she said. No question. No hesitation. He didn't say a word. Just stepped aside. Like he was opening a door. And in that silence, there wasn't doubt. There was only one thing left. Her choice. And it was forever. At dawn, the air was cool, and the ground still held the dampness of the night. Junie stepped out of the house, pulled her shirt tight, and tied her hair back quickly. No mirror, no fuss. She saw Clint by the chicken coop, holding a feed bucket. As usual, he didn't speak first. Figured you'd sleep in, he muttered as she walked up. I figured I wouldn't, she said. They scattered the grain in silence, working in rhythm without thinking. When they were done, Clint nodded toward a far patch of land, past the tree, just beyond the row of wildflowers she'd planted weeks back. Got something I want to show you. They walked a couple minutes without a word. There, where the grass was flattened, stood a single wooden stake. Around it, a small cleared plot of earth. Used to think about putting a shed out here, he said. Never got around to it. She looked at the ground like it was more than just dirt. Why show me this? He shrugged. Figured maybe you want to build something of your own. Not from what was. From what you see now, when you look out here. She stood quiet for a long time, then answered, I want to build something that can be strong and still alive. He nodded. Sounds like you already know where to start. That evening, Junie saw a bundle sitting on the bench by the door. Neatly folded, plain. Inside, linen shirt and trousers. New. No lace. No history. Not from a chest full of memories. Just clothes. She ran her fingers across the fabric. Light, but sturdy. It felt different. Not someone else's. Hers. Clint stood in the doorway, watching. Thought maybe it's time you had something of your own, he said quietly. No stories attached. Junie nodded. No smile. Just a kind of quiet gratitude that didn't need explaining. Later, out back, she pulled on the shirt. The fabric rustled against her skin. It didn't remind her of the past, or the pain, only the present. And when Clint came over holding a carved wooden disc, etched with a sun in the center, she didn't flinch. That's not a tribal symbol, she said. No, he replied. It's mine, but I'd like you to have it too. She took the token and closed it in her palm. Not to forget, but to remember that she wasn't someone else's shadow. She was her own person. Later, Junie climbed up to the attic. She was looking for rope, nails, old boards. Behind a stack of saddles and rusted wire, she saw a box. Dusty. Weathered. She pulled it out carefully. Inside, letters. Dozens. Maybe hundreds. Some still sealed. Every envelope said the same name, Clint Reef. Different handwriting. Some bore army stamps. Some church seals. A few were personal. Old friends from the service. A sister he'd stopped talking to after his brother died. Letters from the church, formal, distant, asking him to return, to explain, to forgive. She didn't open any of them, just held the box, and felt the weight of things people expected of him. Downstairs, Clint sat by the fire, fixing the handle on a knife. She set the box beside him. "You kept them," she said softly. He didn't look up. "Yeah, but you don't read them?" "No." "Why not?" He paused. "Because I already know what they say. And knowing don't mean I need to live by it." She sat down next to him. "You could have thrown them out." "I could have," he said. "But I didn't. That's not weakness. I just don't run. I just don't go back." She nodded. "Sometimes that's enough." Late that night, she sat at the table and wrote a letter, not to anyone, not to anywhere, just to finally say what she'd never dared out loud. "I wasn't made to be half of someone else's hope. I'm not here to meet their expectations. My name is Junie, and it's not a question. It's a choice." She folded the page, held it over a candle's flame, and watched it burn. Slow, clean, not a goodbye, but a beginning. A few weeks passed. The house no longer felt temporary. The ground beneath her feet no longer felt foreign. Junie woke up to the sound of wind outside. Sometimes Clint hammering something on the porch. Sometimes the soft clatter of feed being poured for the chickens. She'd pull on her shirt, tie back her hair, and step out into the morning, knowing the day had begun. People started coming around. Not like before, with questions or suspicion, just with things that needed doing. Dorsey dropped off some leather scraps for harness work. Elma, the old school teacher, brought a jar of dried fruit. A boy named Jesse helped repaint the barn door. He didn't say much, but when they finished, he asked, "This your home now?" Junie paused. "Maybe it is," she said. He nodded, like that was all he needed. Elma handed her a small pot with a cactus in it. "We figured. It's time you had something that can bloom," she said. Junie thanked her. Words didn't come easy, but gestures did. Later, when she planted her first seeds behind the house, her hands trembled, not from fear, but from something new. She wasn't just living here anymore. She was putting down roots. Clint found her near the tree she'd planted weeks earlier. A thin stem, a few fragile leaves reaching for sunlight. She was kneeling in the dirt, tying a strip of leather around its base. A piece cut from the lining of Gracie's old blanket. He walked up quietly. No words. "What's that for?" he asked. "A marker," Junie said. "For me." He knelt beside her, studying the tree. "You think it'll make it?" She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, "I think I will." He nodded. "Then it's got a shot." They sat in silence. The sun climbed higher. The soil warmed beneath them. And in that moment, everything felt like it belonged. That evening, they sat on the porch. Before them, open field. Not perfect, but alive. The sky deepened from gold to blue. The wind was warm. Easy. Junie looked out across the land. Her eyes were tired, but not heavy. "I never thought any of this could be mine," she said quietly. "The house. The sky." Clint didn't smile. Just nodded, like he heard what she didn't quite say. "It always was," he said. "You just had to believe it." She leaned her head on his shoulder. He didn't say anything more. He didn't need to. Some folks run because they don't have a choice. Junie ran because no one ever gave her one. But she stayed. Because this time, the choice was hers. Not to be saved. Not for someone else. For herself. With sweat on her skin. Dirt under her nails. And a silence that no longer scared her. She was the girl they all called different names. And none of them ever fit. Now the land spoke for her. In every rain tapping the roof. In every fire lit in the stove come morning. She wasn't a ghost anymore. Wasn't someone's mistake. Her name was Junie. And not even the rain could wash it away. If this story spoke to you, hit that like button and subscribe. See you next time on Weathered Stories.